This morning, a teenager charged with murder after a horrifying hit-run crash that killed 2 pedestrians, one of them a pregnant woman. Exclusive, we'll have breaking news on a COVID breach at Parliament House just days before politicians are due back. And President Biden ramps up America's vaccination target, saying the country is now on a wartime footing.
This is 7 News.
Good morning. A 17-year-old is appearing in a children's court in Brisbane today, charged with 2 counts of murder. He's accused of killing 2 pedestrians, including a pregnant woman, in a shocking hit-run crash. Mackenzie Rawn reports.
Good morning, Kendall. The 17-year-old at the centre of this horrific crime is facing numerous charges this morning, including 2 counts of murder. Police allege he was high on drugs when he stole a Toyota Land Cruiser from Cleveland on Brisbane's Bayside around 5 o'clock yesterday evening. He was then filmed in an alleged road rage attack, abusing the driver of a hatchback before ramming the vehicle with a disabled child inside.
Oh my God!
15 minutes later, he returned to the same intersection, allegedly running a red light and crashing into a tow truck. The 4-wheel drive rolled, hitting and killing a man and his pregnant partner who were walking their dogs.
He's just slammed straight into him, and a male body has flown over there and a female's flown over the other side. I looked at the people on the road and they were dead, and I was in shock.
The teenager then allegedly ran from the scene. Police say he tried to steal another vehicle from a nearby home, but the resident chased him down and held him until police arrived to take him into custody. Back at the scene, witnesses tried desperately to save the injured 37-year-old man and his 31-year-old partner, who was 6 months pregnant. Both couldn't be revived. It's since been revealed the teenager behind the wheel was on bail for up to 50 offences, including drink driving. He'll face Brisbane's Children's Court later today.
In breaking news, Parliament House has been rocked by a potential COVID scare just days before politicians are due to return to Canberra. Live to political reporter Olivia Leeming with these exclusive details. Olivia, what's happened?
Good morning. Yes, an alarming incident that threatens to force Parliament House into lockdown. 7 News has been told that a group of 25 tourists from Western Sydney visited the building yesterday from the Cumberland local government area, which remains a red zone. Residents there still not allowed to visit the ACT without an exemption due to a cluster of cases in recent weeks. The group went on a guided tour that's open to the public, and we understand it was only in the Parliament House gift shop afterwards, when they were asked for their postcode, that they revealed their place of residence, with security raising the alarm. We also understand this group has been in the ACT for the past 3 days, not only visiting Parliament House but other popular landmarks, including the Australian War Memorial. As of this morning, though, there does not appear to be any action taken, including any effort to sanitise the areas visited by this group. Here at Parliament, it's business as usual. The building remains open to the public, with more guided tours taking place. We are still waiting for a formal response to this incident from the government department that runs Parliament House, as well as ACT Health. But the timing of this particularly concerning, given Parliament is sitting next week for the first time this year, with thousands of people due inside the building, including federal politicians from around the country. Kendall.
Olivia Leeming reporting there. Thank you. New South Wales has now gone 10 days without a locally transmitted case of COVID-19. Almost 10,000 people were tested yesterday, which is higher than previous days. There were 2 new cases in hotel quarantine. Authorities again pleading with anyone with the slightest symptoms to get tested. And in what's being called a happy 21st, Victoria has recorded no new local COVID cases for 3 straight weeks. It comes after more than 13,000 tests were processed on Australia Day. There were 2 new cases detected in hotel quarantine. Victoria currently has 32 active coronavirus cases. At least 9 are linked to the Australian Open tennis tournament. A national advertising blitz is launching today to convince Australians to get a newly approved COVID vaccine. The $24 million campaign will play out on television, radio and online before the Pfizer vaccine is rolled out from late next month.
Our experts are looking carefully at the clinical trial results, along with all the data on quality and manufacturing of the vaccines.
Frontline workers, the elderly and people with a disability will be the first in line for the jab. President Joe Biden has ramped up his country's COVID vaccine order, announcing the US will buy an extra 200 million doses for use in the coming months. If fulfilled, the new order will allow the US to vaccinate up to 300 million people by later this year. US correspondent Tim Lester reports.
The new US president has made it his number one mission, turning around the pandemic in the country where COVID has killed more people than anywhere else. America's current death toll, 425,000.
This is a wartime undertaking. It's not hyperbole.
The president today acknowledged his promised vaccination plan, 100 million doses administered in his first 100 days, will need to go much further.
330 million people in this country, and we want to vaccinate at least 280 million of those.
Of course, the two vaccines Washington has approved for emergency use, Pfizer and Moderna, require 2 shots to be fully effective. 280 million people means 560 million doses. This morning, as Vice President Harris received her second vaccine dose, the president announced plans to radically ramp up the country's order.
We'll soon be able to confirm the purchase of an additional 100 million doses for each of the 2 FDA-authorized vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna. That's 100 million more doses of Pfizer and 100 million more doses of Moderna.
Even now, as the pandemic's third wave appears to have peaked in the United States, the president is warning the country about what's ahead.
Things are going to continue to get worse before they get better.
If the Biden administration can secure the extra 200 million doses, it's expected they'll be administered across the northern summer, allowing by later this year vaccinations of up to 300 million people.
To breaking news, and a man has died in a workplace accident in Sydney. Evan Batten is in Rozelle. Evan, what happened?
Oh, good morning, Kendall. Yeah, very sad news. We're hearing it was about 10:30 this morning when this incident happened here at the marina, the barge area at Rozelle, right beside the Anzac Bridge in Sydney's inner west. Paramedics were called, but sadly there was nothing they could do. The man, who we understand was aged in his 50s or 60s, who was working on the barge, was killed instantly when something fell from a great height, possibly from a crane. Paramedics have told us that his injuries just weren't consistent with life and there was nothing that they could do to try to save him. Now we've seen police rescue here and a lot of other police officers in uniform scouring the scene, no doubt looking to gather other evidence, local detectives as well, as they now try to prepare a report for the coroner. Kendall?
Just devastating. Evan Batten, thank you. Former school principal Malka Leifer is expected to arrive in Melbourne today following her extradition from Israel. Authorities are expected to move quickly to charge Leifer with dozens of counts of child sexual abuse. Jodie Lee reports.
Well, Malka Leifer is due to arrive here in Australia in a matter of hours. When she touches down here in Melbourne, it will signify the end of a 10-year legal battle to have her extradited from Israel to face 74 charges of child sex abuse. Leifer is currently in the hands of Victorian sex crime detectives. She required a negative COVID-19 test to board the plane, which was the very last flight out of Israel before the country closed its airspace due to COVID-19. On arrival here in Victoria, Ms. Leifer will be transferred to a correctional facility where she'll quarantine the mandatory 14 days. In that time, however, she could front a magistrate for a remand hearing. And like any other person before the courts, she could also apply for bail. So while the campaign for Malka Leifer's extradition is almost over, the legal battle and her alleged victims' fight for justice only now begins.
Police divers have found the body of a man after he went missing at a popular Queensland swimming hole. The 40-year-old failed to surface at Gardeners Falls on the Sunshine Coast. His family raised the alarm and police discovered the Brisbane man's body just after 8 last night. It follows a busy day for police and lifesavers with 46 water rescues across the state. A cool change has helped firefighters contain a huge bushfire on the New South Wales south coast. The blaze erupted during heatwave conditions in a national park near Jarvis Bay. The fire burnt out more than 250 hectares before a southerly change and light rain helped firefighters gain the upper hand. It was downgraded to advice level overnight. Next in 7 News, a grim new COVID milestone in the United Kingdom as Boris Johnson defends his record in dealing with the pandemic. And a deadly tornado wreaks havoc as it hopscotches across Alabama. 14 people have been charged over a shocking fight on a Sydney train. 5 men aged 18 and 9 juveniles were charged over an attack on 2 males on a city-bound train between Flemington and Strathfield yesterday afternoon. The group ran off when the train arrived at the station. One of the victims suffered stab wounds to his thigh and shoulder. He's now in hospital in a serious condition. The second victim was also taken to hospital for treatment. A 17-year-old youth faces the most serious charge, reckless wounding in company. The UK has reached a grim new milestone with more than 100,000 people now dead from COVID-19. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he takes full responsibility, but his government has done all it could do to combat the virus. Hugh Whitfeld reports.
Boris Johnson said it was a grim statistic that was hard to compute, as the British Prime Minister said he was sorry and took full responsibility for the shocking death toll. At one point last year, health chiefs here in the UK said a death toll below 20,000 would be, quote, a good outcome. Now it is 5 times that number. Another 1,631 people killed by coronavirus in the last 24 hours. The infection rate appears to be dropping. Cases are down about 60% on the start of the year, but there is a 3-week lag, according to health bosses, before that will be reflected in the daily death toll. Those numbers expected to remain scarily high for another couple of weeks.
I am deeply sorry for every life that has been lost, and of course, as Prime Minister, I take full responsibility for everything that the government has done. What I can tell you is that we truly did everything we could and continue to do everything that we can to minimise loss of life and to minimise suffering.
It's clear, though, Boris Johnson's government has not got everything right during this pandemic and has been often criticised for acting too late when difficult decisions need to be made. Government ministers are due to announce in the next 24 hours or so whether Britain will implement a so-called Australian-style hotel quarantine system. There isn't one right now. It's unclear whether it would be for all arrivals into the UK or just from countries where there is concern about new variants of coronavirus. Around 8,000 people have been arriving into Heathrow every day over the last couple of weeks. Travel operators, though, say it would be catastrophic for the tourism industry, with little to no prospect of European summer holidays in 2021 for Britons. And one newspaper here has gone so far as to describe the prospect of Stalag Heathrow. That's in reference to German prisoner of war camps.
A tornado has killed at least 1 person and left widespread damage in central Alabama. At least 20 people were injured as the storm ripped through the state. Strong winds ripped apart homes and sent cars flying. Neighbourhoods have been reduced to rubble as the twisted, downed trees and power lines. Local weather officials are still assessing the damage to determine the strength of the tornado. Meanwhile, winter storms have brought an unusual sight to Las Vegas. Snow in the normally arid desert. It was so thick in some parts, kids were sliding down hills in makeshift toboggans. The cool snap is expected to continue, bringing another dusting this week. Australia's latest inflation rate has just been released. Let's bring in Network Finance editor Gemma Acton. Gemma, what does the Consumer Price Index tell us?
Oh, morning, Kendall. So it tells us that inflation, or the prices of consumer products, rose by 0.9% in the 3 months to December. Now, that's higher than analysts were expecting and almost double the Reserve Bank's forecasts of 0.5%, but that is still well below its target, which it hasn't reached since 2016. Tobacco prices rose most furiously, up 11%, while electricity prices saw the biggest drop, down by 7.5%. Unsurprisingly, the Aussie dollar moved up a little after the news came out, but it didn't bring any relief to our share market. That slipped back below 6,800 points, weighed down by weakness among our large mining companies. Having a better day is baby formula company A2 Milk. Its shares are up 4%, and Domino's Pizza up 2.5%. And the latest consumer confidence figures from ANZ Roy Morgan also came out today. They're showing another bump higher on the back of improved labour market conditions. Kendall.
Gemma Acton, thank you. Next in 7 News Sport with Sean Sowerby, including breaking rugby league news as Benji Marshall finds a new home. Also, the Sixers sink the Stars as the Big Bash finalists are locked in.
Good morning. The Sydney Sixers have locked in top spot on the Big Bash ladder while ending the Melbourne Stars finals hopes last night. Needing a point to jump above the Perth Scorchers, the Sixers had plenty to celebrate. Stars captain Glenn Maxwell rescued their innings with a rampant 66, but it was Hilton Cartwright's big hitting that stole the show.
Oh, yeah, baby! Jeez, that's the biggest of the day!
Chasing 177, the Sixers put an end to the Stars' season, hitting the target with a ball to spare. The Hobart Hurricanes had a painful end to their season, needing a win against the last-placed Renegades to make the finals. Hobart crumbled under the pressure, losing by 11 runs. And that defeat cost the Hurricanes a finals berth, with the Strikers claiming the last spot in the top 5 on net run rate. The Sixers finished on top ahead of the Scorchers, the Thunder and the Heat. And the finals begin on Friday night with the Heat and the Strikers doing battle in an eliminator. On Saturday night, the Sixers and the Scorchers play off for the first spot in the final. Then on Sunday night, the Thunder play either the Heat or the Strikers for the remaining spot in the decider. All games are live and free across the screens of 7. Australia has named a 19-man squad for the planned 3-test series in South Africa, with Matthew Wade the big casualty. Wade was instead picked in the Australian T20 squad for the Tour of New Zealand, which is happening at the same time. Confirmation the South Africa tour is going ahead is expected next week. In breaking rugby league news, 7 News can reveal former West Tigers champion Benji Marshall has found a new home. Marshall has signed a 1-year deal with South Sydney, where he'll reunite with Wayne Bennett, who he played under at the Broncos. And former Knights captain Mitchell Pearce will have surgery today on a broken thumb that he suffered at training. The club expects Pearce to recover in time for their season opener against the Bulldogs on March 12. The AFLW season has launched its 5th season this morning, vowing it will crown a premier this year. Due to the COVID crisis, last year's season was cut short before the grand final, but the league says this year will be different.
We're sure that 2021 will still throw some challenges at us, but we feel like we are ready for that. We've faced a lot of these challenges already in 2020 with delivering the men's competition.
The women's competition kicks off tomorrow night between Carlton and Collingwood, which can catch live and free across the screens of 7. Former Perth Glory midfielder Jake Brimmer came back to haunt his old side in the A-League. The Glory was on track to inflict Melbourne Victory's 3rd loss in as many games last night. But with the clock ticking down, the former Liverpool youth player stole the game, scoring twice in the dying minutes.
And happy to celebrate against his former club. 2 goals in 3 minutes, turns it all around.
The 2-1 win moves the Victory up to 10th on the table. And Manchester City has soared to the top of the English Premier League, thumping relegation battlers West Brom 5-0 this morning.
And Morris with a brilliant finish as well. Stop the count. Manchester City have 4 in the first half at the Hawthorns.
West Ham's dream season keeps getting better. They're now up to 4th after beating Crystal Palace 3-2. And Arsenal picked up its 5th win in 6 games, downing Southampton 3-1. And Kendall, that's all for sport.
Thanks so much, Sean. Well, next in 7's Morning News, we'll take a look at the national weather forecast. A look at the national weather now. A monsoonal trough is generating rain and storms across the tropics. Another trough extending from Queensland to Victoria is causing southerly winds and showers across the southeast. Taking a look at the national capitals now, Brisbane, another beautiful, mostly sunny day, expecting a top of 31 degrees. Sydney, a possible shower and 25 degrees. The same for Canberra, a top of 23. Melbourne, sunshine increasing, 24 degrees. It'll be cloudy in Hobart today with a top of 17. Sunny in Adelaide, 28. Mostly sunny for Perth with 27 degrees. A thunderstorm is expected to develop in Darwin today with a top of 29 degrees. And that's 7 News to now. Don't forget, we'll keep you updated throughout the day. But I'm Kendall Gilding. Thanks so much for your company. Have a great day.